Fear, fear, fear. Look, the attending physician of the United States Capitol, the top doctor for Congress, asks us to put on masks when we come to a chamber with 435 people. I hate these things. Absolutely. It was terrible having to put this back on. And we do it because the top doctor for all of us asked us to, and I may not be from a hot spot. Speaker may not be from a hot spot. Speaker Pelosi may not be from a hot spot. Somebody in this chamber is coming from a hot spot. Somebody represents the hot spots. And they get in a plane and they fly here and they interact with all of us. And then we leave here and we go home to our families. Some take care of their sick parents. Some take care of kids who may have an autoimmune disorder. And I just find it absolutely immature and appalling to somehow diminish it to try to score cheap political points. And that's exactly what we saw a few minutes ago. That is beneath a minority leader of one of the major political parties in the United States of America, saying we should take no caution that someone from a hotspot is working in this chamber and could potentially get someone infected that could go home to a sick parent or an immune-compromised kid. That is beneath us. That is beneath us. And it's certainly beneath leadership here in Washington, D.C. So I'm sorry I had to comment on that because it's very frustrating. We're dealing with a complicated pandemic, a new strain, and we're trying to figure everything out. And the attending physician says, since you're a group from all over the country, be a little bit cautious. And he gets mocked. This is the doctor we all go to. You're denigrating the attending physician? Has it gotten this bad here? We'll be the first one to go down there when we're sick, need an antibiotic, get your checkup. I mean, come on. Stop. Just stop with this craziness. We're trying to be safe, trying to protect our family members, our kids, our parents, close relatives. And the minority leader mocks that. Mocks it, and mocks the top doctor who has a very distinguished record and a very distinguished career and spends his life making sure we're healthy. Shameful. I urge a yes vote on this en bloc amendment and yield back the balance of my time.
If there is one word to describe Tim Ryan's speech on the House floor, it's that it is common sense. Common sense. And yet the fact that he has to say those things is a testament to the glaring lack of common sense among his colleagues on the right. Like, right now the Republicans are undergoing a coordinated campaign to attack their own attending physician for the crime of trying to keep them safe. And this is clearly a recurring theme. From testing and contact tracing to stay-at-home orders to masks and vaccines, Republicans have pushed back on every single method intended to help them, to keep them alive. And yet even after seeing more than 600,000 Americans die, they'd still rather stomp their feet and throw temper tantrums because common sense is gone. And here's where it all stems from. Donald Trump's political fortunes became intertwined with this pandemic. And so because that entire party is predicated on its fealty to Trump, they have to now pretend that COVID is no big deal because if they give it its due weight, then it'll reflect poorly on Trump. In other words, as long as they can pretend that it doesn't exist, then they can thereby absolve Trump of any responsibility for it. So as far as they're concerned, COVID is still a hoax, Donald Trump had a perfect presidency, and you can't convince them otherwise. Because they'd rather traffic in denialism than accept a reality that isn't unicorns and rainbows when it comes to Trump. And so now, because of that, because Republicans are so committed to the bit, so dug in on their positions, they're now having collective fainting spells at the prospect of putting on a mask, a piece of cloth. Well, guess what? The people driving the surge in cases and hospitalizations and deaths are largely Republicans. So maybe, and just bear with me on this one. Maybe if Republicans could manage to stop whining about safety measures for just 5 minutes, we could actually get this pandemic under control long enough that we won't need any more masks. How do these Republicans not recognize the fact that it's not buzzwords that are going to beat this pandemic? It's not freedom or liberty, it's taking a few simple steps together. That's all. But the performative outrage machine is apparently too attractive, and so here we are in the fourth wave of a virus that is now preventable and yet still needlessly killing people. The craziest part is this is for them. This is for those Republican elected officials. This is for their families, their parents, their family members with autoimmune diseases. This is to make it so that we don't have to wear masks forever, so that we don't have to get booster shots. There is this complete inability to be able to see 1 inch beyond their noses, and it's been this way from the start. That rather than just going all in and enduring so that we can beat this thing once and for all, they would rather push back on everything, thereby prolonging the very thing they claim to hate. You would think that if they wanted this pandemic to end, they would take the steps necessary to actually make this pandemic end. At some point, Republicans have to realize that their desperation to turn everything into a culture war not only isn't helping anything, but at this point is actually killing people, disproportionately Republicans. A Washington Post ABC News poll found that while 86% of Democrats have received at least 1 shot, only 45% of Republicans have. And while only 6% of Democrats said that they would decline the vaccine, a staggering 47% of Republicans said the same. And knowing that of the people getting hospitalized and dying, 99% of them are unvaccinated, this anti-science, anti-vax rhetoric will be directly responsible for the loss of life, overwhelmingly of Republicans. So I'm not sure what the GOP's endgame here is, but if it's to kill their own supporters, then they're on the right track. But if it's not to kill their supporters, then they need to wake up and recognize the damage that they're doing by constantly whining and stomping their feet. This is not a culture war, it is a public health crisis, and we're losing. This is now the 3rd biggest mass casualty event in American history, and still Republicans are positioning themselves on the side of the virus by virtue of pretending that the real issue here is the minor inconvenience of wearing a piece of cloth or getting a free, life-saving vaccine. They know better, but they're opting for the faux outrage because it's easier to fundraise off of that than simply acknowledging that the science is clear. Your money is worth more to them than your life. So look, regardless of how much they complain, just remember that they're not the victims in this, but they're certainly turning their supporters into victims by encouraging them to make a decision that is leaving more and more of them dying every single day. If you enjoyed that video and you're looking for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. It's a no BS look at the top stories of the week, along with interviews with the top names in politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, and more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, if you want to see more videos like this one, click the subscribe link right here on this screen to join the more than 1 million people who've already subscribed to my channel. And finally, to donate to my Don't Be a Mitch fund, where I'm raising money for a whole raft of different voter outreach and voter registration groups in the closest states ahead of midterms in 2022, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Texas. You can find that link on this screen as well. Thanks for watching.